One of the reasons that I wrote my books is that I wanted to clear up a lot of the confusion that comes around intermittent fasting, but also around what causes weight gain in general. We've been sort of brainwashed into thinking that it's all about calories while completely ignoring a lot of things, such as how those calories are distributed, or what I call the sort of meal timing and when to eat, and also the types of food we eat. Because if you think about 50 years ago, sort of your mother, your grandmother, depending what age you are, when they talked about how to lose weight, they didn't really talk about calories, and they were much more successful than us. So the two main questions of weight loss, if you are trying to lose weight, is sort of what foods to eat, because some foods are more fattening than others, even if they're the same calories. So to pretend that eating kale and eating cookies are the same is ridiculous. Yet that's what people tell you, that it's all about calories, they're equally fattening, but they're not equally fattening. They're completely different, and to ignore this sort of truth is ridiculous. And that's one of the things that I wanted to clear up when I was writing some of my books, like the Obesity Code. The other thing we talk about in the Obesity Code at the very end, and also in the Complete Guide to Fasting, is that you really have to allow your body the time it needs to digest the food. And again, this is an idea that's not sort of new. It's something that has been around a long time. That is, you just can't eat all the time. If you eat all the time, you're going to gain weight. If you're going to eat, your body is going to want to store that food energy. When you don't eat, your body is going to need to take some of that food and burn it, because, for instance, when you're sleeping, you're not eating, so therefore your body relies on the stored food. And it can be for a few hours, like when you sleep, like 10 or 12 hours used to be the standard, or it can even be for several days. And that's why we have body fat. That's the whole point of body fat. It's not there for looks. It's there as a source of food energy should you not be able to eat food. So the whole idea is just use it. So the problem is that we've been told that we need to eat 6 or 7 times a day to eat to stay thin, and that's sort of a ridiculous notion that has never existed. It's a new notion. If you go back to the 60s and 70s, nobody thought that we should eat 6 times a day. It all came about largely because of advertising, and food companies wanted to convince us that we needed to eat snack foods, and that's the only reason is because they wanted to sell snack food, so they had to convince us that it was not only necessary, but it was healthy for us. So they told us over and over and over again that you have to eat snacks, and all of a sudden we're eating 6 times a day and thinking that it's really good for us. But in fact, it's not really good for us. If you tell your body to store food energy 6 or 7 times a day, that's worse than if you were to tell your body to store food energy once a day. Because if you do it once a day, the rest of the time you're going to burn that food energy. So that's the idea of intermittent fasting. And this whole idea of fasting, again, is built into our language. If you look at the very word breakfast, it's the meal that breaks your fast. But you can't really break a fast if you're not fasting. So if you're eating constantly, you're never fasting, you can never break it. Yet the English language itself tells us that we should be fasting every single day. It's part of a natural cycle. There's a cycle of feeding and there's a cycle of fasting. So you should eat for 8 to 10 hours a day, and you should fast for 10 to 14 hours a day. And that's how you maintain your weight. And it's not something that's abnormal, and everybody thinks that fasting is something like cruel and unusual punishment, but it's really not. It's just a part of everyday life. It's really the flip side of eating. So you need to balance those two, and good health sort of lies in the balance. It's not feeding all the time, and it's obviously not fasting all the time, because if you don't eat anything, you'll waste away and you'll die. So there is a balance there, and we have to achieve that balance. We've gone way too far over into eating all the time, and also eating foods that are highly processed, that are much more fattening for us than other foods, because we believe that eating the same number of calories is equally fattening. But we have to kind of get back to the basics, sort of what to eat and when to eat. And those are some of the ideas that I think are really important for people to understand in order to regain their health now that they're having all these health issues with weight, with heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and all that. But luckily, it's all reversible as long as you understand that, and eating the right foods and making sure your body has a chance to digest those foods, which is fasting, is critically important. So make sure you watch Reverse TV. It's a great show that's coming up with Charles Maddox. Very excited to be a part of it. Thanks very much.